About slavery, but few discuss paper genocide. We did not all come from Africa, and most of us have Aboriginal roots that were stripped away due to reclassification and miseducation. As a Native Black American and a member of the Muscogee Creek Nation, I understand the importance of tracing your lineage. If you want to learn how to trace your genealogy and apply for tribal citizenship, send an email to mike@keymediapro.com to schedule a consultation.
I am not a slave, I was born to slide, I am not afraid. Hop about a K, oh yeah, free to God, they went out of state. I'm a child of God, I do not belong to the United States. Fuck Black History, tell Uncle Sam he can catch a fade. I went to hell, I mean school, graduated at the top of my class. Still never thought I was over my peers. We did that time together 12 years. Ain't that some movie? I think that it is. They won't control me, I'm really a member. I traveled that road, I came back with the jewels from. When I pull up, they peep how the roof gone. We some dog killers, won't chew bones. Know we all spit on, we supreme. Somewhere I read a nigga had a dream.
You don't have to try to be something you're not.
God, I can't stand this. Trying to be something I'm not? Trying to be proud of my African heritage? If that's being something I'm not, then fine.
My grandmother was a full-blooded Iroquois. My grandfather was a black from a long line of journeymen who lived in Connecticut since the establishment of the colonies. My father was a Bajan who came to this country a cabin boy in a merchant marina.
I know all of that, Mama.
Then know this. I am alive because of the blood of a people who never scraped or begged or apologized for what they were. They asked only one thing of this world: to be allowed to be. I gave you my grandmother's name, a woman who bore 9 children and educated them all. Who held off 6 white men with a shotgun when they tried to drag one of her sons off to jail for not knowing his place. And you had to reach into an African dictionary to find a name that would make you proud.
I was born black, I live black, and I'm gonna die probably because some cracker that knows I'm black better than you, nigga, is probably gonna put a bullet in the back of my head.
This is the remix. My father was raised in the era when black niggas couldn't claim Native American. Making music would've thought I had help, but the Indians I know wanna be the chief they self.
All right. Hit the like button on the way in. Subscribe to the channel if you're new, and hit the Cash App or the PayPal if you support the mission. Let's get on with the content. Today, we're going to be taking a look at some more indisputable facts, highlighting that Black folks have been in the Americas long before Columbus or any other European. Let's go ahead and run the receipts. The receipts that we're going to be taking a look at today are courtesy of a YouTuber called Wild West Los Angeles. So let's see what the brother has in store for us.
Yo, welcome back. WWLA University YouTube channel. We are in Theodore DeBry's Discovering the New World. So remember in the previous YouTube video, we spoke about Jacques Lamont being the artist who created the original engravings of the Mississippian people of Florida in 1562. Okay, so Theodore DeBry was able to obtain those original engravings once Jacques Lamont died. So once Jacques Lamont died, Theodore DeBry was able to obtain those engravings, published them on his own, but as well, he revised them. So remember, a lot of Atina, as we spoke about before, is the enemy, the great enemy of Satyriona. So just take a look at the true representation of Satyriona here. And we can get an idea of how a lot of Atina may actually look when the images are not black and white. So remember, the original engravings were brilliant watercolors. Theodore de Bry, when we look at another source, the same artifact, but just through another source. When we look at the University of, well, no, actually, this is Rare Maps. So Rare Maps, Barry Lawrence Ruderman, they have this version of the same illustration. So still slightly pale, but a little darker than what we see here. So a lot of Atina in this scene is showing the French. This is Laudonnière. He's showing the French a war ceremony. Here we have...
And actually, hold on. I think I might have another depiction of that same person he's referring to. I believe he was referring to Powhatan. And you can see here how over time, Europeans have tried to whitewash that image. You know, clearly he was a big, tall, dark-skinned black Aboriginal, but over time they lighten them. They start showing the photo black and white. This is what he's talking about right here. These are black Indians, not no Serbians, not no Mongols, black Indians.
A lot of Atina's sorcerer, chanting spells as the musicians make rhythmic sounds or music. So kind of like rap music here, like, you know, the sorcerer chants the spells, the musicians make the musical sounds. You can also see the tradition: legs, scalps, arms. This is going into war and after winning a war. Now, just to go back and we understand what we're looking at here, this is Theodore de Bry. Theodore de Bry was the first to illustrate the literature of American travel with any degree of accuracy or elegance. Okay? You want to try to get this book if you can get your hands on it. Discovering the New World, based on the works of Theodore de Bry, edited by Michael Alexander. So, Library of Congress, Catalog card number. You can see here. I'll just look a little more in here. This is all important to read. I can't read this for you guys right now, but what I'll do is hold it here for a second where you can pause it, try to read it yourself. I'll do the same for this page. And this is the editorial note. So, very important to understand. This is the information that the African American black man and woman has not been privy to. Pause it. Read this part down here.
Let's talk about it. Most people don't realize that it's very, very well documented by the Spaniards, the presence of black Aboriginals all across the Americas. This is very, very well documented. But because we've been educated by our oppressor, our history typically starts on a plantation somewhere. But if you go further beyond that, you see it's very, very well documented that we've been here from day one. The depictions of America back in the day were literally a melanated woman with a dog, bow and arrow. All of the depictions of the Indians or the Aboriginals were black people. This isn't a coincidence. This isn't a conspiracy. This was documented. This image we're looking at is from 1787. This is the earliest depictions of the territory of Virginia, Black Indians, headdress and all.
This is a representation of Satyriona. So we can also see another representation of Satyriona while with his bride. So they don't only show Satyriona like this, where he's dripping in gold. He also has, you know, fine fabrics and animal skins, you know, which they paint on as well. When we go to the New York Public Library, you can see here, New York Public Library Digital Collections. It says that this is the habit of a king of Florida in 1625. So you can see how colorful, you know, these garments are. And this is 1625. This is not 1562. Satyriona lived in 1562. But you can see the customs and the traits, you know, the different customs that the Mississippians are participating in, or that they have at that time, is staying the same even after some decades in between. So just imagine how that looks. But then with this guy wearing it. Okay, so in the last video, you know, we wanted to kind of highlight that this is not African culture. This is not West Africa. This is not East Africa, ancient Egypt. This is not, you know, North African history. This is not the Moorish Empire. This is not Carthaginian history. You know, this is purely Mississippian history, North America, you know. So here we see Satyriona, and we spoke about in the previous video the fact that these were sun worshipers. So this is not Islamic culture. This is not Christianity. This is sun worship. So see here, the solemn consecration of the skin of a stag to the sun. Look at the tattoos. Look at the build.
Session. It was a lot of informal information that was given. I am very extensive when it comes to history, so I think that it was great information because I learned quite a few things that I didn't know personally. I learned more in detail on some things that I did know as well. So I think that is a great part of the session, as well as getting an understanding of where you should start to finish. It was very helpful as far as starting off with just getting that family tree mapped out, and then from there going and finding those families within those different documents and different data systems. So I think that this was very helpful when it comes to giving me further ideas on what it is that I should be looking for while creating my family tree and mapping out my genealogy. And I truly, honestly,
you know, look at the customs, the jewelry. We're looking at the same people here, Mississippians. Okay, they praying to the sun. Every year, a little before spring, that is to say at the end of February, King Altina's subjects take the skin of the largest stag they have been able to capture, leaving on its antlers. They stuff this skin full of the most delicate plants which grow there and sew it up. At the antlers, the neck and the stomach, they hang the best of their fruit, flutes and harmonious songs to a special place, large and level. Here it is put on a high tree with its head and breast facing the rising sun. Then the Indians say prayers to the sun so that it will give them again good fruit similar to the ones offered to it. The king and his sorcerer stand near the tree singing chants to which the people standing apart make the responses. Then the king and all his retinue salute the sun and depart, leaving the deer's hide where it is until the following year. They repeat this ceremony annually. So these are sun worshipers. This is not Islamic Moorish culture. This is not Coptic Christianity. This is not, this is purely Mississippian. I can't stress that enough. Let's take a look. Now, this book also chronicles Virginia, okay? If you guys were ever curious about, how the cities looked, you can see, nowhere in Europe at this point in time did they have controlled agriculture. Okay, these are small towns. And then they form into great big towns, plaza cities, mound cities. The marks of sundry of the chief men of Virginia. Okay, we can see the swastika here. Anybody ever seen voodoo symbols? I'm pretty sure y'all seen that somewhere in New Orleans. Okay, but this book has so many gems in it. Just wanted to break into it a little bit just to get you guys familiar with this information. But this is what the African American, this is what the Black man and woman, so-called, needs to study. Because this doesn't deal with West Africa. This doesn't deal with slavery. This is not the BC time period. This is 1500s, 1600s, 1700s, 1800s. That was just yesterday. Let's take a look at a couple more. So here we see Saturniona, like we spoke about in the previous video, leading a war party and praying to the sun for a victory. Okay, so everyone's sun worshipers. The University of Michigan has this same image, but in color. Okay, Saturniona, leading a war ceremony. Saturniona. When we go back to the New York Public Library digital collections, this is their prized possession here. This is Athor, who is Saturniona's son, meeting with Launier, the Frenchman.
Damn, I didn't know there was albino natives, y'all. They are doing some crazy trickery with the paintings and the drawings now. I didn't know that we had straight albino Aboriginals of America. I've never seen a albino Aboriginal of anywhere.
The interesting thing is that when we go to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, U.S. Department of Commerce, they have the same illustration, but completely different than what the New York Public Library digital collection has on hand. Let's go back to that more. You can see the complete difference. But when you go to the New York Public Library, this is what they're going to promote to you. These people are said to be extinct. These are the mound builder people. Princeton Library, Princeton Archives, excuse me. But we can see another version of the same illustration, 1591. Okay. Sun worshipers. This is very interesting. Here, so remember we said sun worshipers and wizards. So at the beginning of a campaign, Altina consults his sorcerer. You got to check this scene out right here. So Altina, remember this is Satyriona. Satyriona is the enemy of Altina. And when we look back on the last video, we spoke about the write-up that was done on this particular sculpture here. And what we need to know is that there is not only this sculpture that exists, but there is a brother sculpture that exists, or a companion sculpture. And that one is this one here. So completely different king representation here. The crown is completely different than Saturnionus. The chest plate completely different, and design. The customs are completely the same, but the designs are different.
I was very impressed. Okay, my jaw dropped plenty of times during this consultation, and I wish it didn't even have to end. It doesn't feel like it has been a couple of hours. I've just enjoyed this. I do recommend consulting with Mike about Native American ancestry, and I think that you will love it. I think that you will find the value in the information as I did.
So this very well could be Altina, because Satyriona and a lot of Atina they're very important to the history of the Spanish and the French. Okay. So back to this particular scene here. The Indians carried the French on their shoulders, which was a great relief to them in the strong heat. So Florida heat, I don't think they're going to be able to look like this in that Florida heat. I'm pretty sure they look like this in that Florida heat.
Come on, more examples of the whitewashing. Paper genocide. Come on, how do you go from this to them trying to depict the Aboriginals of Florida like some pale as hell albinos? How do you do that? How does anybody that looks like this survive the heat of Florida? They're the same color as the Frenchmen, huh? Okay.
I'm pretty sure they look like this in that Florida heat. But back to what we were talking about here. The Indians carried the French on their shoulders, which was a great relief to them in the strong heat. At last, they arrived at the frontier. The king then halted his army and called an ancient magician who was more than 100 years old. So bidding him reveal the enemy's dispositions. So that was the request of Altina to his sorcerer. The magician cleared a space in the middle of the army, and on seeing Altigny, he asked for the shield his page was brandishing. This he put on the ground, and drawing a circle of 5 feet diameter around it, he inscribed some letters and signs in a circle. Sun worshippers using wizardry, sorcery. This is big time history. This is not Moorish history. This is not Carthaginian. This is not Egyptian. This is not West African. Okay? So the purpose of the magician was to reveal the disposition of the enemies. After a quarter of an hour, he looked so terrifying that his face no longer seemed human. He contorted himself until his bones could be heard cracking, and he did many other things besides that were most unnatural. At last, exhausted and as if confused, he resumed his original aspect. Then he left the circle, saluted the king, and informed him on the number of enemies and in which place they were awaiting him.
Come on, guys, let's talk about it. We've got to really, really reshape our worldview on the history of this land. They want us to begin that our history starts with Columbus coming over here. No. When they talk about the the Eastern Woodland people or the mound builders, when they talk about the Mississippian culture that spanned from Canada to the Gulf of Mexico, these were Black Aboriginals, and these folks were ancient. Our history goes back long before Jesus and the Bible. When they talk about the Mississippians were on earth living and breathing and dying and reproducing thousands of years before Jesus ever came around or was written about. So what's really the old world? Is it Africa or is it over here?
Check this out. Alada Atina, Florida king, said to be more powerful than Satyriona. So the French, if we go back to here, the French partnered with Altina. Altina was able to go to war with his enemy, Patauno. Thanks to the French, Altina gains a victory over his enemy, Patauno. This made Satyriona mad, because Satyriona thought he had a friend in the French. And the deal was, whoever your enemies are is my enemies, and whoever your homies are is my homies. But the French went against that. They partnered with Alada Atina for a small period of time. Their friendship ended as well. Here we see Satyriona. So the inaccuracies of Theodore de Bry that historians most frequently mention is that this army formation here is not likely. This is not how North Americans, Mississippians fought. You know, they fought by ambush. They fought by sneak attack. So here is where we are thinking Theodore de Bry may have added his own hint of his creativity, I guess. There's tons of gems in this book. This book also chronicles Virginia. It chronicles the islands. And it gives you some real history on what was going on, because they tell you that the Spanish came over here and dominated everybody.
They don't don't want you to remember this. You not no slave, you indigenous. Fuck how they painted them Indians. You went to war with the French and the British men. Quite frankly, you was kings, Merovingians. They took the women and men, made them prisoners. Raised up the children to worship their images. Set up a lab to the genes and they mixed them. And this shit get way deeper than your pigment.